the so-called autonomous vehicles, of course, are actually a systematic destruction of your ability to autonomously move around in vehicles. This is how it always seems to be, right? The mandates just end up, mandating the destruction of your health. The electric vehicle mandates and autonomous vehicle mandates just happen to destroy vehicular autonomy. There's this video that went kind of viral, it was maybe a month or two ago, and this guy was driving, he was towing with kind of like the flagship Ford electric vehicle truck model, F-150 Ford four-wheel drive Coon Pod Cruiser. The loss in battery life when this guy was towing an empty trailer, nothing in it, just absolutely pathetic how short the battery life was.
That's almost 90 miles of range in 30 miles? Are you serious? That's nuts!
The performance of this vehicle was completely atrocious, right? I mean, this was a tiny trailer. This was a tiny trailer he was towing. A fraction, it was empty, right? A fraction of what your average farmer, what your average truck owner who actually uses the truck for more than just looking cool at the mall or in the suburbs is using it for.
Well, we're not off to the best start because I've already lost 3 miles of range just loading up the trailer and pulling out of my neighborhood, which, maybe a quarter of a mile.
So you'd imagine the average farmer, the average person who owns a, tow-capable vehicle. I mean, this is completely absurd to assume that these electric vehicles are going to be able to handle the inclines, the mountain driving the average rural person is regularly engaged in. The electric vehicle forced transition is a death sentence for farmers, for rural people, and for anybody who's not living in these tightly controlled, tight cordoned smart city type areas. All right, the electric vehicles, the autonomous vehicles, these things are being marketed to us as some sort of an environmental savior. They're being marketed to us as something that's gonna free us, right? It's gonna free us from the evil, cruel, changing weather that's caused by all the bigoted farmers who refuse to turn in their livestock and eat bugs instead of beef. We're told that if we just transition to electric vehicles and get the autonomous vehicles, then we're going to be safe. This is a massive trap. This is a massive trap. The way I see this autonomous vehicle thing being rolled out is a total bait and switch. So they name it on autonomous vehicles, right? It makes you think of freedom, autonomy, right? The great ideals of Western liberal democracy, freedom and autonomy, autonomous man in his autonomous vehicle, going towards his autonomous godless future, cruising in the Coon Pod, into the infinite, blasting into the cosmos of sustainability and freedom and autonomy. It's all lie, right? This is all marketing rhetoric. The autonomous vehicles are actually about removing your autonomy. Vehicles, the automobile, being the ultimate symbol of autonomy. I mean, the vehicle has been a transformative technology as far as culture goes. The autonomous vehicle is the next step in this, but what's so strange about it is a complete inversion of this autonomy that everybody has gotten so used to in being able to get into your automobile, to live where you want to live, to move where you want to move. And of course, there have been benefits and drawbacks to that freedom that the automobile has brought us. You will not be able to get into the so-called autonomous vehicles unless you have sufficient social credits. If you're not a good boy, if you talk to the wrong people on the internet, if you say the naughty words, right? If you make the hate speeches, if you say terrible things like "I hate the Antichrist," if you say hateful things like "I will not eat the bugs" and "I will not live in the Coon Pod," you're not going to be rationed your transportation carbon credits. And what the autonomous vehicles are all about is removing drivers from the road. What the electric vehicles are about is removing your primary energy source. I can't think of a single culture in all of history that has done what we're doing today, that has willingly removed its primary energy source from circulation and choked itself off energetically. I mean, this is a level of decadence and degeneracy that I can't fathom almost. But here we are. We've got protesters gluing themselves to the streets saying we need to stop the use of so-called fossil fuels. We need to get rid of cars that run on diesel. Right? But a lot of what these people don't realize, what these dumb idiots, what these useful idiots who are protesting against their fuel source, the fuel that allows them to eat, is that the so-called third world runs on diesel. All right, they're electric vehicles that they're trying to force you to transition into. The whole economy for the building of these electric vehicles, for the mining of the rare earth minerals, the copper, the tungsten that you need for the drill bits in the copper mines. All of these machines that they're being used for this stuff, they all run on diesel. All the mining rigs run on diesel. You're not going to have lithium or cobalt in order to run these electric vehicles without basically slave labor in areas like Bolivia and the Congo, where these resources are being exploited and taken from in order to fuel this electric vehicle transition. You can't have the electric vehicles without this so-called fossil fuel, which that word is a psyop in and of itself. So here I am, I got a 30-year-old vehicle here. This vehicle is almost as old as me. This is a 1992. It's not very fuel efficient, but guess what? This car's been running for 30 years. This vehicle's got almost 400,000 kilometers on it. And it's meant to be rebuilt 3 times. You can rebuild these engines 3 times. This vehicle could last me the rest of my life. Think about how many resources you would save if people would learn, if we were taught when we were younger how to actually maintain old vehicles. Right? The planned obsolescence of the newer vehicles that are being made, which they don't make them like they made these. How many of these resources are you helping to actually conserve by just keeping old vehicles on the road? You look at places throughout Latin America, most of the vehicles on the road are old vehicles. They're maintained well because people need to maintain them because new cars are expensive. Simple as that. But they want to do away with these. If these people had their way, this vehicle would be removed from the road and I would be forced to purchase a new electric vehicle that would cost upwards of $50,000, $70,000, maybe up to $90,000 in a country like this. Whereas a vehicle like this can be picked up for $10,000, $11,000, which is a little bit expensive compared to other places in the world like the US. But vehicles hold their value in places like this because people maintain them. They need to maintain them. How many vehicles are there rotting in landfills? How many cars from the 90s, from the 80s, that could be in commission, that could be being used today, are just wrecked because of our inability to maintain them, because our laziness, because of the cost of repairs in most countries is very high. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. So the autonomous vehicle transition, the way that this is going to go, guys like Elon Musk have said on Twitter recently, and it's not an exact quote, but something along the lines of, all vehicles will be autonomous. And it's inevitable, they say. Once they get a few of these autonomous vehicles regularly on the roads, the discussion is going to have to be about safety, road safety, and it's already being marketed. There was a city in Israel, I talked about this on a stream a few years ago, a city in Israel that was testing, that was piloting this idea of being totally autonomous vehicle driven, no privately owned vehicles at all, where the government would buy people's vehicles and replace those vehicles with autonomous fleets. And of course, once you have the social credit system in play, you have a potential, not even a potential for, but a plan for a system that's very similar to kind of the film Minority Report with Tom Cruise. It was based on the Philip K. Dick novel of the same name, where he can't get into the vehicle because his digital ID is flagged because pre-crime determined that he was likely to commit a crime. So the autonomous vehicles, the talk is going to be about safety. Well, if we've got these autonomous vehicles on the road, it's going to be dangerous for people who are driving. And the autonomous vehicles are clearly safer, right? Because they're driven by AI. AI. AI is driving them. It's artificial intelligence. It's so intelligent. But if there are other people on the road, if there's stupid people and their dumb cars on the road, the smart cars won't work. They only work if everyone's in them. They only work if everyone takes them. Like many of these other technologies that have been injected in our lives lately. That's going to be the conversation. So really what it's about is removing your ability to have private vehicle ownership, and people from the World Economic Forum, these people at these big companies like Uber, admit just that. Right? Uber is working on getting the fleets of autonomous vehicles. And guess what? They're building that. They're building that on the scaffolding of the hard work of people who were seeking the freedom that the fake freedoms of the autonomous vehicles are promising them, that were seeking this economic independence and, using their vehicles to generate money, driving on their own time. Right? But they're going to switch that out. Then these companies are going to be running nothing but autonomous vehicles. And the removal of the human aspect from transportation is not just about giving you comfort. What this enables them to do is decide where you can live, where you can go. And it seems like first they'll start with the cities. The cities will ban private vehicles from entering and leaving. If you are going to own a vehicle that runs on gasoline, first of all, gasoline, they're going to make it so expensive. They're going to make diesel so expensive. They're going to make gas so expensive that you are not able to drive. And if you are, you're going to have a lot of money or have it be subsidized, right? And they'll give subsidies to certain people, right? Then they'll slowly choke out the rural areas, force them onto the electric vehicles, which are completely insufficient for driving in mountains, right? For towing a load, which when you're driving up a steep incline, it's basically like towing a load. So people who live up in the mountains and are driving up in, first gear, low velocity, people like me will not be able to get to their homes in vehicles anymore. And it will slowly choke out private vehicle ownership, which will then allow a social engineering situation when people are forced to live in confined spaces and the smart cities, because that will be the only place you're able to get things like food, transportation, and building materials. How are you going to transport building materials if your social credit score doesn't allow you access to the use of vehicles? The so-called autonomous vehicles, of course, are actually a systematic destruction of your ability to autonomously move around in vehicles. This is how it always seems to be, right? The mandates just end up, mandating the destruction of your health. The electric vehicle mandates and autonomous vehicle mandates just happen to destroy vehicular autonomy and human freedom and ability to move about. What a surprise. Surprised, not surprised, right? So anyways, I'll leave you at that. Maintain your freaking vehicles. Enjoy driving them while you can. And if enough of us push back, maybe this could be halted. But it's going to take a lot of pushback.
To the distinguished audience, this is a message from the World Economic Forum. We want to ensure that you do not listen to this bigot who will tell you to go to shock.com. There's a link in the description. Do not click the link in the description. It will bring you to a place where you can get highest quality adaptogens so that you can thrive. But the World Economic Forum would much prefer that you would continue to eat your bugs, live in your cool pod, maintain your social credit score, and do not purchase these products. If you do use the coupon code BIG53LIFE, you will get 53% off all subscriptions for life. Do not get a subscription for 53% off of the highest quality purified shilajit. It is best for you to continue to consume the soy sludge. It is preferable that you continue to drink the tap water, avoid quality food, and do not take chalk highest quality supplements. Thank you very much. The World Economic Forum loves you ever so much.